So let's talk about what you built.
Yeah. So I think I'm the type of person that, life isn't worth it if I don't have the quality of life that I want. I was traveling to Arizona, traveling to Mayo Clinic in Arizona for a week long doctor's appointment, testing, things like that. And obviously, I was going to a new place, wanted to do other things than go to the doctors for the week. So I started, Googling things, what to do in Arizona. And the first like 10 things that come up when you Google things to do in Scottsdale, Arizona are hiking. Obviously, I'm not hiking. So I really had to spend a lot of time and a lot of frustration trying to figure out what I can do. And there wasn't really like a one-stop shop for me to try to figure out, things that were accessible to me. When you look for places that are accessible, you sometimes on the websites they have places that say they're accessible, and they have this and that, but when you get there, that's not necessarily the case. Or they say it's accessible, but that's it. It's just sort of that one liner. So who is it accessible for? Like what points do you have that make it accessible? So VacayAbility, it's basically a website where people with disabilities or caregivers or sort of anybody can go on the site and rate and review places, destinations, attractions, hospitality based businesses, all based upon accessibility. And accessibility is, it needs to be known and I guess widely talked about, that accessibility is not just physical accessibility or mobility type of accessibility. It includes needs for people who are deaf and hard of hearing, who are blind and low vision, who have sensory friendly needs, who have food needs like I do, who have some allergy friendly needs, or even that combination of all of that. There's not, for, when it comes to disability, it's not like a one pocket, one lane type of thing. So that's why I came up with VacayAbility.
Based on your personal experience, it's not just one thing, right? It's a variety of things.
Right.
So when we talk about how accessible something is, like you said, how accessible is it to me, right? So hearing from people on your website through these ratings and reviews really does give them a much deeper insight into what that experience is going to be like for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, like, from a marketing perspective, I market hotels, and accessibility has been a box that we needed to check off and list bullet points,
Yeah.
and that's it, right? Like, you can hear it in my voice as like lack of knowledge. And yet I've
Right.
written these pages for so many hotels. From a marketing perspective, what would be a better way? Like, can you answer
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely completely understand that marketing perspective, and accessibility is sort of that checkbox. It is seen as sort of a burden kind of
Mm,
to a lot of hotel brands and hospitality professionals. It's something they have to do. If you're in the US, you have to be ADA compliant. You have to meet those criteria. And sometimes, anecdotally, I've heard people say it's sort of a checkbox. I'm shelling out money with little to no ROI. And I feel like that's not necessarily the case if you really think about it. So if we want to continue along those lines of marketing and those terms of marketing, globally there's about 1 billion people in the world that are disabled. So that's a pretty large market in and of itself. But if you include people that could potentially be traveling with people who are disabled, family, friends, caregivers, that could possibly be like a 2 billion people market. And that's a very large market. That's not like a small number here.
you're right.
And I recently read in the past, I think it was before pre-corona, so like 2008, 2019, that there were over 27 million people that were disabled that were traveling. So that's like a concrete number.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still a very large market. And I think it was like 80 million trips. Again, that's a lot of
Wow.
trips.
Yeah.
And spending over $60 billion. So again, those are very large numbers and very large markets. So from a marketing perspective, why wouldn't you target and infiltrate that market?
Mm-hmm.
The disability community is very tight knit, and word of mouth is a very big point.
Mhm.
Um, so if you go to any of these like Facebook groups or websites similar to VacayAbility, if one place is accessible, you will definitely have people flocking there because
Mhm.
you've built that reputation of being accessible. Those are guaranteed numbers for you and guaranteed dollars for you.
You've laid out the case so beautifully. And and it's not just individuals traveling by themselves. So those numbers are actually probably on the low end because people travel with their families. There's multi-generational trips. So how many people
Exactly.
travel with somebody who has accessibility needs that you're not reaching either, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's massive. So it's the complete opposite of what people think, which is, oh, this is just a cost and there's no ROI. In fact, you're missing out on and leaving a lot of opportunity and money on the table. And you're limiting, who can experience your hotel and your
Yeah.
destination.
People with disabilities do travel. People with disabilities, do have money to travel. So it's sort of that, how do we balance? How do we balance in terms of marketing, in terms of that perspective when thinking about diversity?
How to